So I'm here with Milo Yiannopoulos, the great man himself.
Amazing, pronounced it right. Nobody pronounced it right.
So, Milo, first question. Why are you supporting Donald Trump for president?
Oh God, that's such a bad first question. It's really embarrassing. Because I just sort of... do I think he'd make an amazing president? Possibly not. But I like the idea of Donald Trump. I like what he says about the political establishment, political classes. I like the fact that Donald Trump is unashamed, is completely brazen about sticking two fingers up at a political class that's completely failed ordinary people. And I like his, I like his swagger, I like his manner, I like him as a guy. I think he's tremendous, exactly my kind of celebrity. Sort of totally brazen, unashamed, very gauche celebrity that appeals to the lowest common denominator. It's right up my alley, I love it. As far as the presidential candidate goes, I think he's exposing huge and very significant fault lines in the way that politics has come to work in the UK and in the US. Both countries have the same problem. Both countries, have a political class that's hugely far removed from the people that it claims to represent. In the UK, the result of that was, 3.8 million votes for UKIP. In the US, they've already had the Occupy and Tea Party movements. The process is a little bit further along. It's now become a really acute problem. It's now become so acute that Donald Trump seems to many people like a reasonable presidential candidate. If I support him, I support him. I don't think it will be any great surprise to you to learn in a largely ironic way. But that's not to say I don't genuinely like the guy. And you know what? If he did end up in the White House, I wouldn't be devastated.
Yeah, wow, it's brilliant. So, what do you think is the most toxic section of modern feminist doctrine?
Okay, so if the last 10 years were about setting men against women and allowing women to say pretty much whatever they want in public with impunity, and denying men the right of reply, denying men the ability to stick up for themselves, or even just tell the truth. You can get fired as a man today for saying facts on TV, That's a silly situation, and it's wrong. But things are going to get even worse. And what feminism ties into sort of intersectional progressive politics of the left that I think in the next 10 years is going to lead to what I call minority wars. And for me, I think what's going to be fun for columnists like me and journalists like us and people who enjoy watching the craziness of the left play out, but is going to be very painful for a lot of ordinary people, is how the left seems intent on pitting minorities against minorities. Tony Blair did a really good job as a centrist Prime Minister of introducing civil partnership, which sidestepped the difficult problem of gay marriage, because what he didn't want to do is pit the churches against gays, right? It was a very smart thing to do, because it avoided the war that we then had when gay campaigners said, no, that's not good enough, we want marriage as well. The progressive left, word progressive really just meaning nothing's ever good enough. It seems intent on pitting minorities against one another, and it all comes from this sort of bizarre place of white middle class guilt, sort of hand wringing, and sort of the only environment that could ever give birth to kill all white men and Black Lives Matter is a white liberal establishment that is racked with middle class guilt. That's the main problem. You've got people, almost entirely white organisations like Gawker, Vox, BuzzFeed who are pushing this stuff. And the result is going to be, for example, we've seen this already actually, feminists against transgender activists, drag queens against trannies, Hispanics against blacks, and that's the really big, exciting stroke horrific war to come. Because the demographics of the US are changing very rapidly, and Hispanics are going to be the majority ethnicity in, possibly within our lifetime. There are statistics on this, and I think it is definitely within our lifetime, in fact. And Hispanics don't have the same guilt about slavery that white Americans do. They're not going to care about, Ferguson, Baltimore, all of these rioting districts. They're not going to give a shit about Detroit. They're going to look at this and they're going to say, right, these guys need to be put back in their place, and the policing is going to be brutal. And as an ethnic majority, the war between Hispanics and blacks is going to end very badly for the blacks, unless the current incumbent establishment white America stands up for black people. Unfortunately, politics is moving in the left direction. It's moving in the direction of the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party, of course, being the party of the KKK and Jim Crow laws. I don't see that happening. I think they've forgotten about black people. And we don't have 60% problems here in the UK, but the US really, I think, is where we see where feminism is going next. And to answer the question directly, the most poisonous and toxic bit of feminism is the identity politics from which all these problems flow. It's identity politics which has set men against women. It's identity politics that tells men they have no say in women's issues. And it's identity politics that's going to give rise to these horrific minority wars. And as the left fragments gender and sexual identity into millions of different identities, genderqueer and all the rest of it, all they're really doing is creating new special interest groups that are going to start warring with each other for resources and attention.
Right, so just the last question now of this section. Do any of the 4 candidates for Labour leadership have a chance at winning in 2020?
No. Thank God. No, I mean, maybe, who knows. Yvette Cooper, I guess, would be the only... Oh, Liz Kendall everyone says they like, but I can't really see anyone voting for her. I see her, she's very unimpressive. She's a hugely unimpressive woman. I see her on stage and I just sort of think, Prime Minister? No. As with so many things, it's Conservatives that came first. We had the first female Prime Minister, we had the first ethnic minority MP, which you may not know. So I think Conservatives will continue to, the Conservative movement, whether it's UKIP or the Tories, will continue to lead the way on that stuff. Liz Kendall, unimpressive. Yvette Cooper, unimpressive. Andy Burnham is... Well, when I run out of sleeping tablets, I look up Andy Burnham on YouTube. And Jeremy Corbyn, of course, would be the most horrific and amazing disaster for the Labour Party. There is a world in which, there's a future in which, that something awful happens to Conservatives, maybe related to Europe, maybe related to, who knows, some awful calamity, with an economic crisis, for example, that we didn't see coming, that sweeps Jeremy Corbyn into power. I mean, if that happens, I'm on the first plane out of here, and I'm sincerely, not even Katie Hopkins like I'll leave as Victoria. I actually will, I really will go, because it's not a country I want to live in. Absent one of those disasters, absent an act of God, no, I don't think any of them have any chance. I think the Tories are going to be in power for at least another 2 terms, which is wonderful.